Tom Bowles for Frontstretch.com here alongside Dalton Hopkins and Jared Haas. Daytona Victory Lane is behind us as our coverage of the 65th annual Daytona 500 has come to a close. And the winner, Dalton, somebody that I don't think was top of anybody's list, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and JTG Doherty Racing, the first single car team to win since Trevor Bayne and the Wood Brothers in 2011. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. his first win on the Cup level in almost 6 years, and those wins were in super speedway races. So we know that he has the experience to get it done, but where was he on your bingo card?
Nowhere. I don't even think he was on the bingo card. But, you know, looking back, that feels wrong, doesn't it? Ricky Stenhouse has been one of those guys that's up in the front at these super speedway races time and time again. But in the Daytona 500, he's usually in the wreck or he's the one that causes the wreck. So to see him up front this time, he was finally in position. He finally got the push into position where he could get the lead and hang on to it. He was able to do that today. I think it was a long time coming for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and the number 47 JTG daughter team. They finally got it.
Certainly down the stretch, want to mention his friend Kyle Larson. Ricky and Kyle, good friends off the track. They linked up late in this final stage, and then circumstances really played out in Stenhouse's favor. But the 5 team, he really deserves a pat on the back to Kyle. I mean, like they needed him, Jared, in order for the 47 team to reach victory lane as a single car outfit. What do you feel like this will mean for Ricky going forward in the 2023 season?
This proves a lot for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It felt like the Daytona 500. He wasn't really been a factor the past few years. He's been in the field, obviously. He's done, some racing in super speedways, has been up there occasionally. Think of last year's Daytona 500 up there, correctly. But this is just the confidence setter for the rest of the season that Stenhouse is in the playoffs. And this is huge for that team because they're a single car operation. They're not like Hendrick Motorsports where they just flat dominated qualifying. Stenhouse played his cards right finally and won the Great American Race.
I'm sure the YouTube commenters are going to get me if I'm wrong, but I believe JTG only has one playoff appearance period with AJ Allmendinger back in 2014. So for them to make the postseason is huge. The owners in our post-race presser, not only them, but crew chief Mike Kelly, very compelling in terms of, the little team that could, and everybody believes, and, not giving up. And, talking about not giving up, we're going to turn to the race itself. There were so many comers and goers in this race. We had 52 lead changes, top 5 lead changes in Daytona 500 history. But Dalton, there were so many guys that had it in the palm of their hand, and then you saw it slip away. Name one or two that stood out to you that you really felt like could be sitting there behind us right now.
I could name a couple, honestly, but I'm only gonna do the one, and it's gotta be Brad Keselowski first off. I mean, what was it, his 14th, 15th attempt in the Daytona 500? I mean, this is a guy that knows how to win at super speedway races. He's won at Daytona here before. He's won at Talladega 6 times. One of the best ones. Denny Hamlin said he's one of the best super speedway racers in the field right now, and rightfully so. And he was finally up there when it mattered in the last 5 laps with Chris Buescher right behind him, his teammate and employee. I mean, if there was ever a perfect opportunity for Brad Keselowski to win this race, that was it. And then they get freight trained by the Chevrolets, by the bow ties of RCR. Like, what a missed opportunity for Brad Keselowski. And after that, faded from obscurity. Just all of the chaos that ensued after that. A very poor day for Brad Keselowski. Didn't even want to talk to the media at all. So, Brad, a tough end to his day, tough end to his night in the Daytona 500, but I'm sure he'll be back next year.
Not the only veteran, I think, that thought that they had the Daytona 500 within their grasp. Jared, who's on your list?
It's got to be the one, the only, the new man in black and Richard Childress I talked about in the pre-race was Kyle Busch. He was set to win it, and Daniel Suarez spinning on the front straightaway looks innocent enough. Kyle Busch made the move to get around both the RFK racing cars. That was the winning move. He gave the signal, the one little hand signal to say go with Austin Dillon, and they made their move. And even in Austin Dillon during his when we interviewed him after we got out, checked and released in the Infield Care Center, he's like, I was helping Kyle Busch. He wanted Kyle Busch to win this race because it meant so much to him. Austin Dillon already has a Daytona 500 championship in 2018. So And Kyle Busch gave a very Kyle Busch-esque post-race interview when he talked to the media after he got checked and released too. He was pretty frustrated, just not happy with the situation because it was right there in the palm of his hand, and he's sitting in the garage with a wrecked race car, no trophy in hand.
What Jared's referring to, he talked about leading at lap 200 and wishing it were 1998 rules, because that's 25 years after Dale Earnhardt won a Daytona 500, coming to the caution with no overtime to win his first 500. Kyle Busch's drought now up to 0 for 18. I want to mention on my list Stewart Haas Racing. I know Ryan Preece doesn't have any cup wins right now, but he, Harvick, Briscoe, they all looked really strong. They were all taken out in a wreck, I think with about, midway through the final stage. Bad bump draft with Michael McDowell started it and wrecked a lot of people, and it left Eric Almirola, who I thought was one of the strongest cars all day, out to dry, and just he really didn't have anybody to hook up with late in the race, and it just left him isolated, and it's too bad. I know it was my pick to win, but Almirola had a really strong speed weeks, and it was circumstances outside of his control that really left him sitting on the sidelines. So let's talk about Travis Pastrana real quick, guys. This was a guy that one of his first pit stops, penalty, going through too many pit boxes, I should say, not knowing NASCAR rules, fell a lap down, had to fight back, finally gets on the lead lap, dodges all these wrecks. He ends up in 11th place. Dalton, this is a guy that is making his first Cup start at age 39, really didn't do well in the Truck Series, thinks it's just going to be a one-off. I think that'll still be the case, although who knows after his success today. Were you surprised that he was able to finish this well?
Yes and no. I've been saying it all weekend long. It's not about the speed, it's about survival. And Travis Pastrana was with the 2311 car. He had the speed, but he was in the back the whole race. And that penalty didn't do him any favors either. But, when he came to the end, by the end, he was in the mix. Going into turn one for that final restart, if it weren't for that final crash, if it didn't happen, I would have loved to have seen how he would have done. But didn't turn out that way. In the end, though, 11th place, not bad for a first start for Travis Pastrana. It looked like he still had a lot of fun, and I really hope this isn't his only attempt.
Pretty darn good, if you ask me. Jared, you interviewed so many people at the end of this race. Who's one that stood out to you for their strong run or underdog performance?
The first and foremost, we talked about Kyle Busch. He's very, disappointed too. Denny Hamlin seemed like he had, same characteristics of the Kyle Busch interview, just disappointed in that. But I have to say the Travis Pastrana interview was quite interesting. He was still upbeat, answering every question that was thrown into his face. He was there for at least good 10, 15 minutes answering questions to us about his day, what happened. So he was actually pretty upbeat after his race. He's just having fun. And when you've had, drivers are having fun, even though he wrecked, yes, but he finished 11th. He was just here for the good time, for 2311 Racing, for their third car. That's what kind of stood out to me, was the contrast with all these drivers that got wrecked. Travis Pastrana being well, and then your obvious people with Kyle Busch saying he wants 1998 rules again.
Well, it's time for you guys on YouTube to give us your take on the race. Comment underneath, let us know what you thought about it, and let us know how we did on our weekend of Daytona 500 coverage. Once again, this is Dalton Hopkins, Jared Haas, I'm Tom Bowles. I will close with this. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. winning to start the season kind of continues the 2022 theme, right, of parity. Ricky was saying in his post-race presser, he expects to have more winners in 2023 than there were in 2022. He's going out to go score some points. And for a team like the 47 to start off with a win in NASCAR's 75th anniversary season, if I could count, then I feel like that bodes well for the next gen year too, in terms of some of these smaller teams, being able to compete. I know it's just Daytona, but I think moving forward, we're going to see a lot more underdog performances like that one on the short tracks, road courses, and super speedways. So, Pit Lane LT, NASCAR Bowls, Real Jared Haas on Twitter. I hope you enjoyed our coverage, and we'll see you at a racetrack real soon, okay?
Jared Haas with Frontstretch.com. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, check one of those 2 videos out that we have right beside you. Visit Frontstretch.com for more great content.